The desert world of Valsera was silent, save for the wind. It whistled to the cracked bones of mountains, carrying centuries of dust across crimson dunes. Beneath those shifting sands slept something ancient, something that had been waiting far longer than humankind had existed. For most, this planet was a graveyard. For Dr. Elias Kale, it was a beginning. He stood at the edge of the excavation pit, visor tinted against the glare of Valsera's twin suns. Below him, his research crew worked in silence, the sound of drills and scanners swallowed by the vast emptiness around them. The air shimmered with heat, the ground brittle from eons of desolation. Every sensor reading screamed one thing: there's power here, something alive. Elias had been following faint energy signatures for months, rhythmic pulses deep beneath the planet's crust. They were too structured to be natural, repeating every 87 minutes like a sleeping heart. Every other scientist had dismissed it as an anomaly. He couldn't. His instincts whispered otherwise. "Miri," he said, glancing at the floating orb beside him. His synthetic assistant, a sphere of polished alloy and soft blue light. "Run another spectropass. I want confirmation on that pulse." "Already done," Miri's voice replied, calm and distinctly feminine. "Same pattern, same amplitude. Whatever's down there is still active and old, extremely old." Elias exhaled slowly. Good. He was getting close. They had been digging for weeks, cutting through layers of fused rock and crystalline strata that no natural event could explain. Then, on the 72nd day, the drill struck something solid, a black surface harder than steel, engraved with symbols that shimmered faintly when touched by light. When they cleared the last of the sand away, they found it, a monumental stone gate half buried, half melted into the surrounding rock, as if the planet itself had tried to swallow it. It wasn't just a door, it was a seal. Elias stepped closer, brushing his gloved hand along the surface. Lines of light followed his touch, spreading outward in intricate geometric patterns. The symbols formed spirals and circles that pulse in rhythm with that same buried heartbeat. Miri translation. The AI projected the text into the air. "Here sleeps the Volari, the architects of the stars. Disturb not the heart of eternity, unless you are ready to bear its burden." Elias stared at the words, feeling a chill ripple through him despite the heat. The Volari. The name appeared in fragmented records across forgotten ruins and deep space archaeodata, whispered in the same breath as gods. Some called them myths, others the first empire to sculpt stars. All agreed on one thing: they vanished without a trace. Until now. He placed his palm against the door. "Let's wake them." "Dr. Kale, that may not be advisable," Miri started, but it was too late. The gate responded to his biosignature. A low hum filled the air, and the ground trembled. The light pulsing through the symbols intensified until they blazed like molten rivers. Then, with a sound like the cracking of a world, the gate opened inward. Elias descended into darkness. The tunnel stretched for miles, walls lined with metallic veins that pulsed faintly as if reacting to his presence. The deeper he went, the colder it became. His helmet's lights flickered over vast chambers filled with strange machines, spheres suspended in midair, surrounded by swirling holographic runes that moved like living code. "This isn't a tomb," he whispered. "It's a stasis vault." Miri's light pulsed nervously. "I'm detecting millions of quantum life signatures. They're dormant, but still active. Doctor, if these readings are correct, these entities have been in suspension for over 30,000 years." Elias approached the heart of the vault, a massive chamber where gravity itself seemed to bend. Floating at its center was a black crystal monolith, easily 30 meters tall, radiating slow waves of energy. Around it were thousands of smaller pods arranged like petals in a colossal mechanical flower. The core obelisk, the heart of the Volari. He couldn't resist. He extended a probe, connecting Miri's translation algorithms directly to the obelisk surface. The moment contact was made, the world changed. A soundless pulse rippled outward, shaking the ground and extinguishing his lights. For an instant, there was nothing but darkness. Then the obelisk came alive. Bands of light erupted across its surface, cascading upward like veins igniting with fire. The smaller pods around the chamber began to flicker one by one. Hundreds, then thousands. The hum grew louder until it felt like the air itself was vibrating. Dr. Kale, Miri warned, you've initiated a system-wide activation sequence. Elias backed away, shielding his eyes as a sphere of golden energy formed above the obelisk. Inside it, a shape began to take form, humanoid, radiant, and impossibly beautiful. The energy coalesced into a figure of shimmering light and gold-threaded armor. Her eyes opened, twin galaxies of swirling silver. She floated down before him, her expression serene but powerful enough to make him tremble. A mortal born of flesh and blood, she said, her voice resonating not through the air but inside his mind. You are not Valari, yet you bear the spark. Elias swallowed hard. I'm human. My name is Elias Kale. I found your resting place. You awaken me. The figure regarded him in silence for a long moment. Around them, the other pods began to open, releasing more figures of light. Hundreds of them. The chamber blazed with luminescence, shadows fleeing from every corner. We are the Valari, she said finally. We are the memory of the stars. When the silence came, we sealed ourselves within the heart, waiting for one who could rekindle it. You have done this. You have revived us. Elias took a step back as the energy waves intensified. I didn't mean to. Meaning is irrelevant, she interrupted softly. Deed defines destiny. The figure, the Empress Seraphine, as he would later learn, lowered herself until her feet touched the ground before him. The other Valari followed, kneeling as one, their heads bowed in shimmering reverence. From this moment forth, Seraphine declared, her voice echoing to the vault like thunder, the Valari owe you eternal loyalty. You have given us breath. You have restored the light of creation. We are yours in life, in death, and eternity. Elias stood frozen, unable to comprehend the magnitude of what was happening. Billions of years of history, a dead civilization now awake and bound him. Miri, he whispered, record everything. I already am, the AI replied, voice trembling with synthetic awe. Doctor, I believe you just resurrected a god. The chamber ceiling peeled open like petals unfurling, and daylight streamed down for the first time in millennia. The desert above shimmered as immense structures rose from beneath the sands, towers of light and metal rebuilding themselves, vast energy conduits stretching across the horizon. The world of Valsera was alive again. Elias watched in disbelief as the Valari spread their luminous wings and ascended into the air, singing in a language that vibrated through his bones. Their song was ancient and sorrowful, a hymn of rebirth. Seraphine turned to him one last time, her voice soft, almost human. You have awakened more than an empire, Elias Kale. You have awakened memory itself. He stood amidst the blinding light, heart pounding. Somewhere, the rebirth of the Valari Empire spread across Valsera like sunrise after endless night. In the days following their awakening, the once dead planet began to breathe again. What had been barren sand now shimmered with crystalline life. Monolithic spires rose from beneath the dunes, unfolding like flowers of glass and light. Rivers of luminescent energy coursed across the valleys, feeding newly reborn ecosystems. From orbit, Valsera no longer looked dead. It glowed, a star reborn among stars. Elias Kale stood on a balcony overlooking the radiant city of Eonspire, the Valari capital remade before his eyes. Floating constructs drifted through the air like living sculptures, weaving new architecture out of plasma and nanite dust. Every structure pulsed with a rhythm that felt almost alive, as if the city itself was breathing in harmony with its inhabitants. He still couldn't believe it. One man, a handful of tools, and an act of curiosity had resurrected a civilization that predated humanity's entire history. Miri floated beside him, scanning the skyline. Energy levels are stabilizing, the AI reported. The planetary grid is self-sustaining. Atmospheric balance has been restored to 89% of Valari standards. Elias smiled faintly. They're rebuilding faster than I ever thought possible. A soft voice answered behind him. We remember the shape of life, Elias Kale. All we needed was a reason to begin again. He turned. Empress Seraphine stood at the balcony's edge, her form radiant yet tangible, a seamless fusion of light and matter. Her eyes still held that same endless depth. Galaxies woven into a gaze I could see through both flesh and soul. Elias bowed instinctively. "Your Majesty." "Do not bow," she said gently. "We kneel to you. The oath has been made. Until our suns fade, the Valari are bound to your life." Her words still unsettled him. The sheer weight of their devotion was overwhelming. "Why?" he asked quietly. "Why such loyalty? I didn't create you. I just touched something I didn't understand." Seraphine smiled faintly, though sadness lingered in her tone. "You did more than touch, Elias Kale. You believed. When all the younger races looked at the stars and saw emptiness, you saw the memory of those who came before. You reached for us not to conquer, but to understand. That act is sacred to us." Elias turned back to the glowing city, the enormity of it pressing down on him. "And now you've made me your leader?" Seraphine's expression softened. "Not leader, anchor." She gestured to the horizon, where beams of light from countless towers connected into the sky. "Our existence depends on equilibrium, energy, emotion, purpose. Without a living consciousness to stabilize our resonance, we fade into silence. You, Elias Kale, are that resonance. Your humanity sustains us." He stared at her in disbelief. "You mean I'm keeping your entire species alive?" "Not by power," she replied, "but by presence. Your thoughts, your empathy, your imperfection, they remind us how to feel. The Valari forgot that long ago." Days turned to weeks, and Elias began to understand the world of the Valari. They were beings of light and thought, existing between physical and quantum reality. Their bodies could shift from solid to luminous form, and their cities were living entities connected through a planetary consciousness network called the Eidolon Flow. Through this network, Elias could hear faint whispers, echoes of Valari voices reverberating across the air like soft music. They spoke in harmonics, emotion translated directly into sound. Every word felt like a song. At first, the voices overwhelmed him. Thousands of thoughts brushed against his mind. Gratitude, wonder, reverence. But there was also fear. Fear of loss, fear of silence returning. When he slept, he dreamed not of earth, but of stars and oceans of light. Sometimes he would awaken to find Seraphine watching over him, her expression unreadable. "You dream of things that never were," she said once, placing a luminous hand over his heart. "Humans have always dreamed beyond their limits. That is why you found us." He looked up at her, voice hoarse. "And what happens when I die? What happens to all this?" Seraphine hesitated. "Then we will fade with you. The bond cannot be transferred. You are the singular constant of our rebirth." Elias's heart sank. A civilization tied to his fragile human life. It was too much responsibility for one man to bear, but there was no turning back. The first signs of outside contact came 2 months after the awakening. Miri detected a signal from deep space, encrypted human frequencies. The Terran Exploration Council had picked up the massive energy signatures emanating from Valsera. The message was brief, cautious, and full of bureaucratic weight. "Unidentified power source detected in Sector 91A. Report immediately. Secure findings. Do not engage without authorization." Elias sighed. Well, that didn't take long. Seraphine looked out toward the stars, her expression calm but distant. "They will come. It is their nature, curiosity followed by fear." "Then we'll show them there's nothing to fear," Elias said, "if they see what you've built." "They will see a god reborn," she interrupted. "And gods terrify mortals." Her words lingered like a shadow. Soon, the Valari constructed great orbiting rings, silver halos around the planet, designed to protect a fragile rebirth from external interference. Their ships were things of beauty, living architecture that glided through space without engines, propelled by thought and light. Each ship sang in harmonic tones, like an orchestra in motion. To humanity, they would look like divine armadas. To Elias, they were miracles. He worked tirelessly, documenting every structure, every symbol, every piece of language Miri could translate. His reports were a mix of awe and dread. The Valari technology was millennia beyond anything human science could grasp, capable of manipulating matter, gravity, even emotion. But the more he learned, the more he saw their fragility. The Valari were not gods. They were survivors. They had sacrificed their physical forms to escape extinction, only to lose their souls in the process. Now, reborn, they clung to the one thing they had never understood, the human heart. One evening, as twin suns set over Ian Spire, Elias stood with Seraphine on a balcony overlooking the city. The sky shimmered with auroras of living light, and millions of Valari drifted below, their forms glowing softly. They were singing again, a song of remembrance. Elias listened, eyes wide. "It's beautiful. It is our first memory," Seraphine said quietly. "We sang it when the stars were young. It was meant to call home any who were lost. For eons, we waited for someone to answer." Elias turned toward her. "And you think that someone was me?" Her eyes gleamed. "Who else could it have been?" He tried to laugh, but his voice broke. "I'm just an archaeologist." She stepped closer, her light reflecting in his visor. "No, Elias Kale. You are the echo of what we once hoped to become." A silence passed between them, filled only by the hum of the city. For the first time, he realized that Seraphine wasn't just an empress. She was lonely. She had carried the weight of eternity alone, waiting for a mortal to wake her. And now, with her people reborn, the galaxy had begun to stir. Miri sensors detected dozens of ships entering the system, Terran vessels. The first human fleet had arrived. Seraphine watched the sky darken, the shimmer of The first Terran fleet arrived in silence. 12 battlecruisers glided into orbit above Valsera, their hulls gleaming in the pale light of the resurrected planet. Their banners were the sigil of the Terran Exploration Council, but Elias knew their mission was not exploration. It was containment. For days, they hovered beyond the orbital rings of the Valari, scanning, recording, watching. No transmissions, no weapons fire, just a cold hum of suspicion between species. From Ian Spire's command spire, Elias stood at the center of a luminous chamber. The celestial nexus, a room alive with holographic constellations that reacted to thought. Around him, the Valari High Corps gathered, their forms flickering in spectral light. Empress Seraphine's projection towered above all, her eyes fixed on a holographic representation of the Terran ships. "They come cloaked in peace," she murmured, "but their hearts carry fear." Elias pressed his hands against the console. "They're scared. They don't understand what you are. I can talk to them, explain." Seraphine's gaze cut through him. "You would explain eternity to those who measure life in decades." "I'd explain you're not a threat," he said, his voice cracking. Her expression softened. "To you, perhaps, but to them, we are an empire reborn, a memory that refuses to die. And the universe fears what it cannot kill." When the first message from the Terran fleet arrived, it was blunt and cold. "This is Captain Marinhold of the TSS Resolute. By order of the Terran Council, you are to submit all control over this world and its technology for scientific evaluation. Unidentified entities are to be confined for security assessment." Elias's heart sank as he read it. Security assessment. That was human bureaucracy for containment. He turned to Seraphine. "They'll fire if you don't respond. Please, let me talk to them. Let me be the bridge." For a long moment, the Empress was silent. Then, with a slow nod, she extended her hand. "Then speak, human of heart. But remember, every word you utter binds two worlds." Elias's transmission was simple, sincere, and desperate. "This is Elias Kale, lead archaeologist of the Valsera expedition. The entities here are sentient, peaceful, and reborn through cooperative restoration. They are not hostile. They are alive. I urge non-aggression. This planet is under protection of both humanity and the Valari Empire." For a heartbeat, the stars were silent. Then came the reply. "Elias Kale, you are hereby ordered to return to the fleet for debrief. Non-compliance will be treated as treason. The entities you describe represent a strategic threat to human sovereignty." Seraphine's image shimmered beside him. "They would destroy us to protect themselves." He swallowed hard. "They'll destroy everything. The Valari's defense systems, the Eidolon rings, activated automatically when the first Terran cruiser entered low orbit, not as a weapon, but as a shield. A barrier of radiant energy enveloped the planet, shimmering like liquid aurora. To the Terrans, it looked like an act of aggression. Within minutes, the Resolute and its escorts armed plasma lances, the blackness of space filled with light. The first strike tore through the outer ring, scattering shards of photonic metal across the void. In response, the Valari ships rose like living guardians, vast, winged silhouettes of light and song. They did not fire weapons. They sang. Their harmonics distorted reality itself, bending the trajectories of missiles, dissolving plasma beams mid-flight. The Terran ship staggered, sensors blinded by a flood of resonance frequencies. But humanity had always been relentless. Within hours, they adapted. EMP torpedoes, resonance disruptors, weaponized silence. The Council had prepared for God before. From the surface, Elias watched in horror as both fleets collided above the glowing world. Every explosion painted the night with brilliance. Every scream across the comms a reminder that peace had failed. Miri's voice trembled in his earpiece. Incoming debris patterns suggest orbital collapse. The rings won't hold much longer. Elias clenched his fists. We can't fight them. Seraphine, please. There has to be another way. But the Empress's eyes burned with sorrow and fury. They would burn our rebirth to ash. They would return us to silence. I will not allow it. For the first time, Elias saw her in war. Seraphine stepped onto the Sanctum Bridge, surrounded by thousands of Valari warriors, beings of living plasma, their forms armored in crystallized light. They spoke not through words, but through a single united thought. Protect the anchor. That was Elias. Their loyalty was absolute, their devotion unquestioning, and it terrified him. As the Valari fleet moved to intercept the advancing Terrans, Elias made a desperate choice. He boarded a shuttle and ascended through the chaos, broadcasting an open frequency. This is Elias' Kale to all Terran vessels. Stop firing. You're killing a species that trusted us. They're defending their right to exist. Static swallowed his voice. The Resolute locked weapons on his shuttle. At that same instant, Seraphine's command rippled through the Valari network. A blinding surge of light. A shield flared around Elias's ship, absorbing the Terran fire. Enough! Seraphine's voice echoed across every comm, her tone vast and divine. If you would destroy us, then you will witness what you fear. The stars themselves seemed to tremble. Valari constructs spread their wings, channeling the Eidolon core, a planetary consciousness unleashed. The sky turned white. Every Terran ship halted as the very fabric of their systems was rewritten by the Valari's resonance. Energy turned to song. Machines forgot how to hate. For a single, breathtaking moment, the galaxy was silent. Then, slowly, one by one, the Terran ships went dark, their crews unharmed but paralyzed by awe and fear. When the light faded, Valsera still stood. The fleet retreated beyond the system's edge, shaken and wordless. Elias floated above the reborn world, his heart a storm of guilt and wonder. He had witnessed both miracle and devastation. The birth of a new empire, defended by love and fear in equal measure. Back on the surface, Seraphine waited, her glow dimmed, her strength drained by the act of planetary defense. The song of war always costs more than it gives, she said quietly. We have won nothing today. Elias knelt beside her. You save your people. Her eyes met his. No, Elias Kale. You saved them. We only followed your will, your rage, your fear, your desire to protect. That is what guided us. And now, humanity will never forget what we are capable of. He felt his chest tighten. She was right. Humanity would remember this day, not as a misunderstanding, but as the day an ancient empire rose from death and challenged them. The war of shadows and light had ended in stalemate, but the galaxy had changed forever. In the weeks that followed, the stars whispered of a new balance. The Terran Council declared Valsera a restricted system, warning all travelers to avoid it. But rumors spread of luminous beings, of cities made of song, of a human who commanded gods. Among the Valari, Elias became more than a savior. He became a symbol, a bridge between mortality and eternity. And as he walked the glowing streets of Spire, he could feel their eyes upon him, millions of voices singing his name in reverence. Miri's voice broke the silence in his ear. You become a myth, Elias. The war had ended, but peace was not peace, only silence wearing its mask. The Terran Council's fleet withdrew beyond a nebular rim, their engines leaving trails of pale fire. They did not speak of surrender nor victory. They spoke only of containment, of the Valari anomaly, of the man who stood between light and extinction, Elias Kale. To humanity, he was now traitor, god, and myth. To the Valari, he was emperor. Valsera drifted in the cradle of its reborn orbit, its once ruined surface now blooming with crystalline forests and rivers of living light. Spire rose higher than ever, a city made of memory and song, its towers stretching into the upper clouds like the fingers of a sleeping giant. From the highest terrace, Elias gazed at the horizon. The suns of Valsera cast twin golden shadows across the spires. Around him, the voices of the Valari whisper in harmony, not speech, but pure feeling, joy, gratitude, fear, love. He felt every pulse of their consciousness within him. The bond forged in resurrection had grown deeper, too deep. The longer he lived among them, the less human he felt. Their thoughts brushed his mind like wind, and sometimes when he closed his eyes, he could no longer tell which memories were his own. Miri hovered beside him, silent for once. Her tone, when she spoke, was quieter, almost reverent. Vital signs stable, but neural patterns are shifting. You're synchronizing more rapidly than before. I know, Elias whispered. I can feel them, all of them, their hopes, their fears. It's beautiful and unbearable. Your human brain wasn't made for eternity. He smiled faintly. Neither was theirs. Days became months. Months turned into the slow rhythm of immortal seasons. The Valari Empire spread again, not through conquest, but through restoration. They healed the broken moons. They reawakened forgotten worlds. And always at their heart stood Elias, the living anchor of their rebirth. But even as the galaxy began to whisper his name with awe, something inside him began to fracture. Each time he used the Eidolon network to connect with the Valari, he lost a little more of his humanity. He began to dream not in words, but in color and sound. He saw the past lives of 1,000 Valari who had lived and died before him. Their memories filled him until he could barely remember his own mother's face, his own world scent. And yet, when he spoke, they listened as if he were the heart of creation itself. He had become what they needed, a symbol of balance. But symbols could not bleed, and Elias Kale had not forgotten how to bleed. One evening, in the Hall of Echoes, Seraphine found him standing before the great mirror of starlight, a portal through which the Valari communed with the core of their civilization. His reflection shimmered, human yet not. Threads of luminous energy pulsed beneath his skin, his eyes faintly aglow with the blue of Valari resonance. "You're changing," she said softly. He didn't turn. "I know. The bond is deepening. I can feel their hearts, every one of them. It's too much. You were never meant to bear eternity alone," she whispered. "But we cannot sever the bond. If you fall, we fall." He faced her then, his expression tired but resolute. "Then I'll stand until I can't." Seraphine's gaze softened, an ancient sorrow hidden behind light. "You've given us life, Elias Kale, but what of your own?" He smiled faintly. "I gave it the moment I touched your tomb." But fate was never still. A century after the war, the silence broke. New Terran explorers, younger, bolder, and unburdened by old fear, returned to the edge of Valsera's system. Their ships no longer bore the marks of war, but of curiosity. The galaxy had changed in 100 years. Humanity had grown, fractured, and learned. They came not as soldiers, but as seekers. Their leader, a woman named Captain Amara Holt, descendant of the very admiral who once tried to destroy the Valari, sent a simple transmission to the one they call the Emperor of Light. "We come not to conquer, but to understand. Humanity remembers you, Elias Kale. Some call you traitor. Some call you savior. We only wish to know the truth." The message struck something deep within him, a fragment of the man who once stood on a dead world with dust beneath his boots and wonder in his heart. He turned to Seraphine. "Let them come," he said. "If they remember me as human, then I owe them the truth." When the Terran envoys arrived, they were stunned by what they saw. Valsera was no longer a world. It was a living star, its city suspended in light, its people radiant and gentle. They bowed not to power, but to presence. And at the center of it all stood Elias, the last bridge between two civilizations. He walked among them with calm grace, his form human in shape, but touched by divinity. When he spoke, his voice carried a resonance that made even silence seem alive. "Welcome home," he said simply. Amara bowed, trembling. You remember us?" "I remember everything," Elias said. "The war, the fear, the light that blinded us both." Her eyes filled with tears. "You could have destroyed us. Why didn't you?" He smiled, and in that smile was the weary kindness of a man who had seen eternity. "Because I remembered what it meant to be human." The Valari gathered, singing softly as Elias guided the Terrans through their crystalline halls. He showed them cities built on empathy, where thought and emotion were currency, where grief became music and joy became architecture. The Terrans listened in awe. For the first time, they did not see gods. They saw kindred souls who had learned the cost of forgetting themselves. And as they departed, Captain Amar looked back and whispered, "Maybe one day we'll earn what you found." Elias's gaze followed her ship as it vanished into the stars. "You already have," he murmured. "You just forgot how to see it." Centuries later, long after even memory began to fade, the galaxy would still tell the story of the man who bridged the finite and the eternal, who refused to let either side forget what it meant to feel. They would call him the Emperor who remembered humanity, the immortal who carried the echo of every heart that ever dared to dream. And on the luminous world of Valsera, beneath twin suns that never set, a single figure stood alone upon the balcony of Ian Spire. His hair shimmered with the light of the stars. His eyes reflected both sorrow and serenity. He whispered into the wind, not to gods or empires, but to himself. "We are only eternal when we remember what it means to be human." The wind carried his words through the luminous canyons, into the hearts of the Valari, across the fabric of their consciousness. And somewhere far away, a Terran child looked up at the stars and felt a warmth she could not explain, a whisper of light, a memory of kindness. It was said that on quiet nights, if one listened close enough, the stars themselves sang in his voice, not as an emperor, not as a god, but as a man who refused to let eternity forget the sound of the human soul.